Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. And tonight I'm going to run the affordable housing lottery for the 64 rental units at Station 316 in Woburn. And I'm going to get the lottery underway in just a few minutes. Before doing that, just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions during this session, you can go ahead and either type them into the chat function in Zoom, or you can unmute yourself. When you came into the meeting, you were muted just to minimize any outside noise. And this meeting is being recorded because it will be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel for anyone who wants to view it after the fact that wasn't able to make it tonight. So before I run the lottery and do the drawings, just want to give you some background information on how many applicants applied and the breakdown. All of this information will be given to you in an email after the lottery. So just to start out, so everyone should have a lottery application number. That is the number that was emailed to you in the form of a series of numbers. So you should have something that says A period 001, for example. It goes all the way up to A.0236 in this case. Let me know if you don't have that or if you misplaced it, because that is the number that will be drawn during the lottery. We're not going to be saying anyone's names, for example. So there were a total of 220 completed applications. So there's going to be 220 households in the lottery. The lottery application numbers go up to 236 because we needed to remove some duplicates and applicants who withdrew their application. So there's 64 total affordable units at the property. There are 7 studios. For those 7 studios, we received 43 completed applications. For the one bedrooms, there's 27 one-bedroom apartments. We received 63 completed applications. One of those one bedrooms is a disabled accessible unit. So households who indicated that they need the features of that unit will have priority for the accessible unit. And there was 5 applicants who indicated they need that accessible unit. There's also 26 two-bedroom apartments. There were 83 applicants. Again, there's 1 disabled accessible unit for those 2 bedrooms. And for 2-bedroom units, keep in mind that type 2 or type 3 households, so generally larger households, are going to have priority for those larger units, 2- and 3-bedroom units, over type 1 households. And also there's 4 3-bedroom apartments. There were a total of 101 applicants for those apartments. 89 of those applicants were type 3 households, so they were the largest households that will have priority on the waiting list for the 3-bedroom. So again, back when you completed your application, you will have indicated your household size, and we would have confirmed what your household type was, either 1, 2, or 3. And you'll notice that if you're a larger household, you're going to have priority for the type 3 unit, and the type 2 households and type 3 households will have priority for the 2-bedroom unit. There's also local preference for some of these waiting lists. So if you answered yes to the local preference question on the lottery application, you should have got a lottery eligibility email from SEB Housing as well, and we would have confirmed that you had let us know that you either lived in Woburn, you work full-time there, you have a child going to the public schools in the town, and you would have local priority for some of these units. So all of that is to say, you're not going to know during tonight's drawing whether or not where you fall on the waiting list, because I still need to sort the results after the drawings tonight. So when I pull the numbers tonight, you're not going to know, which households, which lottery application numbers belong to households who applied for a 3-bedroom, or who need local preference, who need a handicap accessible unit. So you're not going to know all that much tonight during the drawing, but soon after the drawing, you'll get an email from us with the sorted waiting list and more information on next steps. So there's going to be 2 lottery drawings tonight. I'll be using a website called random.org to complete the drawings. The first will be the local preference drawing, and during that drawing, I'll include households who indicated that they either live or work full-time in Woburn, and I'll insert those application numbers for the 48 local preference households into this website. I'll screen share it with you so you'll be able to see it in real time, and the list randomizer on this website is going to basically digitally generate a random order. So we're doing it that way to try to keep everything as truly random as possible. And then the next drawing will be the general drawing. So everyone, regardless of whether or not you have local preference, will be included in that general drawing. And that will be all 220 lottery applications that will be included in that general drawing. So the randomization of your lottery application numbers, it's going to be instantaneous. So you're going to be able to see the results of the drawing right away, rather than needing to listen for your lottery number. And again, I'll be sharing my screen during that process so you're able to view it. Speaking of that, I'm going to screen share right now just so you can see how this is going to look. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to go and share my screen, and then you can see, I'm just going to go to random.org. You should be able to see my screen now. And I'm going to scroll down. This is just a website that is, it's a free browser that you're able to do a bunch of things with. So I'm going to go to the list randomizer function here. When I copy and paste the lottery application numbers in here, they're going to be in the form that I mentioned, the A.001, for example. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to show you, this isn't the drawing. Again, this is just just demonstrating how it's going to look. And so I've typed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I click randomize, it's going to spit those numbers back out in a random order. So in this case, number 4 was first, number 3 was last, for example. And that's what's going to happen with your lottery application numbers during this drawing. So again, I'll screen share again in just a few minutes to show you the actual drawing, but that's how it's going to look. And then I'll scroll down the results. If you want me to look up your lottery application number for you, I can do that. But again, it's not going to tell you a whole lot right now because we still need to sort the results onto the waiting list. And those waiting lists will give you a better idea of whether or not you're going to be moving forward in the process right away. So after the lottery, like I said, an email is going to be sent to everyone. We have your email addresses from when you applied to this lottery, and that's going to be sent hopefully by tonight. I should be done sorting the results tonight, and you'll get an email from either info@scbhousing.com or no reply at scbhousing.com. A copy of each waiting list will be attached to that email. So you'll be able to see where your lottery application number falls on those waiting lists and where it's positioned relative to other lottery applicants. Also keep in mind that if you indicated interest in more than one unit size, you're going to have a placement on more than one waiting list. So for example, if you applied for both a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, you're going to have, you're going to see that your lottery application number is on both of those lists. And when you get those lists tonight, you're going to see that the top households on each waiting list will be highlighted in green. And that's because those are the households who are going to immediately be invited forward to the next step in the process, which is to complete your lease and program eligibility application screening with the leasing or the management office over at Station 316. Your contact information is going to be shared with the leasing office after today, so they'll have your contact information as well, and you'll be able to coordinate meeting up to or getting an email from them or however way they're going to handle the applications to move forward in that process to see if you're lease eligible and to see to submit all of your income, asset, and tax documentation to them. Because as of right now, to get into this lottery, you just self-reported what your income information was, and then now they're going to need to verify that with pay stubs, bank statements, that sort of thing, so they can complete those screenings for you. So if you're found eligible the households with the highest positions on each waiting list are going to have the first chance to select, reserve, and then eventually lease one of the affordable apartments. If you're not one of the top households on the waiting list, you're not going to be contacted by the leasing office to complete those steps right away. However, if for any reason households ahead of you on the waiting list ultimately decide not to rent the unit, or maybe they are denied, they're ineligible, you will move up on the waiting list and the leasing office will contact you to move forward in the screening process. So basically your takeaway should be, if you're not highlighted, if your lottery application number is not highlighted in green on the waiting list that you received tonight, it means that you're not going to move forward in the process right away, but you could later on in the process, because it certainly does happen very often that households drop off the waiting list for one reason or another. The first available apartments at Station 316, they're scheduled to be available for occupancy in late March, so there shouldn't be much of a wait at all after applicants have completed all of the required screening. And just one final reminder before I do the drawings, we like to remind households that if you're living in an affordable apartment, you will need to have a recertification of your income every year. So you're going to want to maintain like a folder or something with your records in it. Keep your taxes from the previous year, your pay stubs, that sort of thing, bank statements, so you have everything available and ready to go when the leasing office needs to reevaluate your income about 9 months into your first year of the lease, ahead of your lease renewal. And then I see I had one question here. So I have a question from iPhone. It says, what's my number? So you can direct message me your full name, and I hopefully can find that for you. And then I have another message that is direct. It says I'm local preference, but I don't think I ever got an email about verifying it. So if you have your lottery application number, if you have that email that was sent to you confirming your lottery application number, that's the email that will say you applied for local preference or you didn't apply for local preference. So before I get started, let me just try to look up this application number here so I can send it over to you. Just have to pull up our database here with everyone. And if anyone on here doesn't have a lottery application number, that means that you were not approved for this lottery, or potentially you didn't receive the email. Maybe it went to spam or something. So I'm going to look up your name here and hopefully, yep, I do have a number for you here. So I'm going to send you a direct message with your, there's a few iPhones here. So I'm going to have to send it to everyone here. That's your lottery application number, Marissa. How does it work with Section 8 and SCB income certification? So if anyone on this call has a Section 8 or MRVP or other mobile housing voucher that you plan on using at Station 316, you will you'll let your current landlord know that you plan to move. You'll break the lease, but that won't be until further down the line. If you have been lease approved and you've reserved a unit, you don't want to do any of that right away. Your first step should be checking in with the agency that administers your vouchers, so the housing authority or the nonprofit that administers your voucher will want to learn more about this apartment to know if the payment standards or the max rents for your program are acceptable in terms of what the rent is for this property. So voucher holders are absolutely welcome to rent at this property and any property. You just want to make sure that you give them a heads up to make sure that these rents are allowable with your voucher. And in terms of paying the rent, sometimes you're able to submit your last recertification from your housing authority to the leasing office so that you don't have to submit all of the same information to them that you may have already done with your housing agency. SCD Housing is actually not involved after this lottery with any of your screenings. So the leasing office over at Station 316 will be asking you for that information, and the rent that is associated with these affordable units will just be the rent that you will see on your rent share letter from your housing authority. You'll still have that certain portion of it, the 30% or 40% portion that you would normally pay. So there's just going to be some extra communication between the leasing office and your voucher administrator. So just a few extra steps, but shouldn't be too out of the ordinary. Any other questions before I run the drawing? I'm going to screen share again. And I'm going to show you a little spreadsheet that I have here. All right, I'm sharing my screen again right now. This is just an Excel spreadsheet that has all of the lottery application numbers for all of the local preference households in column A here. And then I'll switch over to the general drawing. Column A here has 220 applicant numbers. So we can run both of these drawings. So the local preference drawing, I'm going to do that now. And I'm just highlighting the 48 applicant numbers, lottery numbers for anyone who indicated that they have local preference. So I'm going to go back into random.org, and I'm basically going to cut and paste those application numbers from this spreadsheet, the local drawing. This is the local drawing for Station 316 in Woburn. So I just dragged and dropped all of the 48 applicant numbers, lottery application numbers of the local preference households. I'm going to click randomize, and there are 48 results here, and this is the order of priority for local preference households. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy and paste these into my spreadsheet before Xing out of everything so we can look at these results together. And I'm going to make it a little bit easier for you to see. Just give me one moment here. And I'm going to save that. So before I scroll through this so you can see your application numbers or so I can look at them or I can find them for you, I'm going to do the general drawing. So these are the 48 numbers here. You can see that 0035 was called first for this local preference drawing. So now I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. And this is the general drawing for Station 316. These are 220 application numbers that I've highlighted here. All of these are going to now be copied and pasted into the same website to have a random drawing for all households. So there are 220 application numbers here. This is everyone who applied for and was approved for the lottery at Station 316. So I'm going to click randomize, and these are the general drawing results. So it includes every household who applied. And the purpose of these drawings is to, one second. The purpose of these drawings is to generate an order of priority for when I am creating the waiting list tonight. So the first person in this general drawing was the household who has A.0184. We don't know if that household applied for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom studio. We don't know if they're local preference. We don't know if they require a disabled accessible unit. All of that needs to be taken into account tonight when I'm creating the waiting list. So you don't really know a lot from this. that doesn't mean that this person is going to be the top applicant on any of the waiting lists, because again, we don't know what their priorities are. But with that being said, you're not going to have the waiting list sent to you until after I create them. So if anybody wants me to look up their application number, I can do that. So I can tell you, and you'll have some sort of a sense as to whether or not your application number was drawn early in these drawings or if it was later. So if you want to send me your application number in the chat, you can do that. Or if you're on the phone, you can let me know and I can look that up for you. So I have a couple that came in now. I'm going to do A.0225 first because I think you were first there. So you were called 205th in the general drawing, and you didn't have a position on the local list. Now I'm going to do A.0123. You were 44th in the general drawing. You were not on the local list. A.0205. Oops. 0205. You were 136th in the general drawing. You were not on the local list. Yep, so Marissa, your application number was 0060. And you were drawn 108th in the general drawing. You were not on the local list. 0042. You were 147th in the general drawing. You didn't, oh, sorry, you do have a position on the local list. You were 37th on the local list. That is 0042. And now I'm looking up 0145. You were drawn 187th in the general drawing. And on the local list, you were 31st. 0076. 0076. On the local list, you were 39th. And on the general drawing here, you were 90th. 0025. You were drawn 19th in the general drawing. And on the local list, you were 35th. So I have a question here. Does that mean I'm not moving forward? So none of this means anyone isn't moving forward. So even if you were last on one of these lists, it doesn't mean that you're going to be last in any of the waiting lists, because we don't know yet where these other applicants ahead of you are going to fall, because these are just the numbers, and I'm going to need to look and see who was local preference, who's a type 1 household, and create the waiting list from there. So if you were drawn, generally, if you were drawn early, further up these waiting lists, you usually have a better place on these, if you were drawn higher up in these lottery results, you usually have a better position on the waiting list, but that's not always the case, because there are households that are drawn ahead of you that don't have the same priorities as you. Maybe they're a one-person household who applied for a 2-bedroom apartment, and you're a one-person household, and you're a 2-person household who applied for a 2-bedroom apartment. You're going to have a better, position on the waiting list just because you have a higher priority. So I have A.0011. I think that's what you wanted there. 11. You were drawn 122nd in the general drawing, and you were not on the local list. Yep, 060. Everyone, you're asking here, did I make the general list? So everyone is making the list, because any household who was determined to be eligible for this lottery has a lottery application number, and all of the lottery application numbers were called tonight during this drawing. What if you're a family of 4? So if you're a family of 4 and you applied for a, actually, hold on one second. I'm going to pull up the order of priority so you have a better sense. In the information packet for this lottery, on page 11 it usually is. You'll be able to see, I'm going to share my screen again here. You'll be able to see the order of priority for each waiting list. So I'm going to minimize this just a little bit so we can see the whole thing. But so when you look at this, might be a little too small. Hold on. If you're a family of 4, you're likely a type 3 household. So if you applied for a 3-bedroom apartment, you're going to have the highest priority for that 3-bedroom waiting list. On your email that had your lottery application number, that email indicates what your household type is. So either 1, 2, or 3. If you're a 1-person household that doesn't need an extra bedroom for any disability or medical reason, then you're going to be a type 1 household for sure. So if you're a 4-person household and you applied for a 2 or a 3-bedroom apartment, you're going to have a higher priority on these waiting lists than someone who doesn't need that extra space and is a type 1 household, for example. Yep, Marissa, your number is A.0060. Any other questions? So basically, the results that I just looked up for you and that you just saw were not, these aren't the waiting list. These are these were the results from tonight's drawing. And later on tonight or tomorrow morning at the earliest, you'll have an email from us with the waiting list, and you'll be able to see the results of the sorting of the waiting list, which is going to tell you a lot more than what you learned tonight. So
Sandra and I do have a question.
Sure.
We're A11, you said? A.0011. A.0011.
Yep.
So where were we on the list?
So in the general drawing, you don't have a local preference. Yeah. So you were drawn 122nd in the general drawing. Okay, it doesn't tell you a whole lot right now.
Right. Okay. That's what we figured. We were just discussing that. So that doesn't mean we're not moving forward. It's just that we're still on the general list.
Yep. So these are the lottery results, and then I need to sort them onto the waiting list. So
excellent.
There could be quite a few people ahead of you on the waiting list who are not applying for the same units as you are, or whatever it might be.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Yeah, no problem. So the question here is the waiting list done via drawing? So this is the drawing. The lottery that was just held, these 2 drawings give us a order of priority, and then the waiting lists are then sorted based off of the waiting list tiers that you see on your screen right now. So this is in the information packet for Station 316, and when I sort the results onto the waiting list tonight, I'm going to take everybody's information and I'm going to see who applied for a studio apartment, who applied for a 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and sort them based off of these tiers. So if you applied for a 3-bedroom apartment and you have local preference and you're a type 3 household, you're going to have the top priority for one of the 3 bedrooms. There's also 3 bedrooms, 3-bedroom apartments that don't have local preference either. There's a general question here. What does 80% of AMI mean? So everyone who qualified for this lottery, and most of the affordable housing lotteries that we do, has to have a total household income under 80% of the area median income. That's an amount that's set by the Federal Housing and Urban Development Department each year. And based on what you indicated what your income was on your lottery application, you qualified for that. So nobody is going to be renting these apartments unless they qualify for the affordable housing program. And in this case, that means having income, total household income, below 80% of the area median income for Woburn. So I'm going to work on the taking all of the drawing information that we just had from this lottery. I'm going to create the waiting list based off of these preferences that you see on your screen. and you will get the waiting list from me along with kind of a synopsis of who applied, you know, how many type 2 households there were, how many people applied for 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and a little more information on next steps that I mentioned earlier during this session. You'll get that email from me with the attachments hopefully later on tonight, if not tomorrow morning. And if you have any questions on that, or if you can't find your application number on the waiting list that you think should be there, please let us know. The leasing office's information is also going to be sent to you in that email, and they are going to be your main point of contact after tonight, because they're going to be doing all of the subsequent screenings, both your lease screening and they're going to be gathering all of your income information if you're one of the households that's going to be asked to move forward. How long is the waiting for local, or is it the same for general as well? So I'm not sure what you mean by that, but the waiting lists are on your screen right now, and there's 48 households who qualify or indicated that they qualify for local preference. Those 48 households are going to have priority on the local preference waiting list. Everyone is going to have a placement on both the local and the general waiting list. So you'll find your lottery application number on multiple lists because you're going to have a placement on both lists. The leasing office will be moving forward with inviting applicants from all of these waiting lists, hopefully at the same time if they have the capacity to do that. So the wait in terms of being called forward should be the same. Out of 64 affordable apartments, how many people applied? So there was 220 total applicants that were approved for this lottery. We had a few more applicants that didn't qualify, or well, we had a lot of applicants that didn't qualify, but there was also applicants who, if you submitted a duplicate application or if you withdrew. So that's why there's a few more lottery application numbers. But there was 220 total for these apartments, but there's a lot of apartments. And the first 64 names on the waiting list are not going to be the households who end up leasing the property, so leasing the apartment. So there will be households who either aren't qualified or no longer interested, and you're going to see the results of that. So Marissa, so your number is 60, and everyone has a placement in the lottery. The waiting lists are going to be generated in just a few minutes. I'm going to start working on those, and you will be emailed your placement. Everyone is going to have a placement on the waiting list. And everybody's lottery application was drawn tonight. Any other questions? Like I said, the email from us will either come from info@scbhousing.com or no reply@scbhousing.com, but feel free to reach out with any questions once you take a look at the attachments to that email. It'll make a little bit more sense when you have those too. I know it's kind of confusing that, the lottery isn't telling you a whole lot tonight, but the waiting lists will make it a lot more clear when you see your application number in its final order.
So I do have a question.
Yeah.
So we have a Section 8 certificate voucher. Do we not have to go through SCB? We deal right with housing and the leasing company?
So in this case, yes, because SCB is not going to have any involvement with this, with your screening thus forward. Usually, during our lotteries, it's a little confusing because if you've applied to one of our lotteries before, normally we're doing the program.
Yes, we have.
Screening. Yeah. So normally we're doing the program eligibility screening. And in this case, they're handling that on their own. So it'll be just the leasing office that will be in touch with you about all of that.
Well, thank you very much.
Yep. Anyone else? And like I said, we have an email address for everybody. So make sure you're checking that email, and any deadlines that the leasing office gives you, if you are invited to move forward and submit all of your income information to them, just make sure that you're checking your emails over the next few weeks to get all of that information into them so you don't miss anything, any deadlines they might give. All right, thanks again for participation and the questions, and we will be in touch very soon. And of course,
Thank
any
you.
questions,
Thank you for taking the time out tonight.
Of course. Thanks for joining. Good luck, everyone. Oh, just a final question here. When does leasing open? So we were told that units will be available at the end of March. So it won't be too much of a wait after these screenings are finished and everything. Have a good night, everyone.